Tonight I'm going to read from Why Aren't You Smiling, which is a historical novel set in the 1970s. And I'm not going to read from the beginning. Most of the book actually deals with the kind of misadventures of this befuddled teenage boy on his spiritual quest. But I'm not going to read from Leonard's story tonight. I'm going to read from what is essentially an appendix at the end about one of the minor characters named Rick. Now, Rick is a nice Jewish boy from LA who wanted to be a rock star but didn't quite make it, ended up as a roadie, said nuts to that, and has reinvented himself as a Jesus freak preacher on Sunset Strip. You know, you gotta make it at something, right? You know? Sorry. Yeah, exactly. Well, as long as you're on stage, right? Yeah. And there we go. It was a day for hibernating. The autumn sky was covered in clouds the color of pencil lead, and the air smelled of approaching rain. Christ's crash pad was deserted. Even Ferguson, he's the head preacher at Christ's crash pad, even Ferguson, who practically lived at the place, was nowhere in sight. Rick would have split himself, but he'd signed up for Tuesday afternoon shift and had a responsibility. If anyone wandered off off the street in need of ministering, he'd be there. Right from the start, it had been obvious to everyone that Rick had a way with lost souls. He'd gotten the clinically paranoid girl with the butterfly tattoo to stop screaming and phone her parents. He'd gotten the murderous-looking biker to kneel and pray. All he had to do was smile, and people calmed down and opened up. Of course, Rick couldn't just smile. He had to say stuff, too. He'd been reading up on early Christianity, heretical sects, and charismatic leaders, picking up words and phrases he could fashion into happy homilies, uplifting advice, and semi-coherent answers to life's cosmic conundrums. When totally lost, he just cribbed from the inspirational posters on the wall. Seagulls flying over a sunset. The key to happiness is freedom. The key to freedom is courage. That sort of thing. The lost souls loved it. Rick's near magical ability to comfort and console them made him feel special, important. And of course there were fringe benefits. Once a kid trusted you, it was often possible to take things a little further. Lars, his boyfriend, had gone off to college at Berkeley, but there were others like him. Rick was delighted to find that many Christian boys displayed an uncomplicated randiness that his sexually neurotic Hebraic brethren utterly lacked. More than a few turned out to be insatiable love machines. The moment a new kid off the street started hanging around, Rick would scope him out. He could tell right off who'd be interested in his special brand of one-on-one counseling. He almost felt bad about being so predatory, but he was just making people happy. What could be wrong with that? To quell his boredom in the empty storefront, Rick began reading his library book, a biography of St. Francis. Reverend Ferguson abhorred anything Roman Catholic in a modern, ecumenically tolerant sort of way, but Rick found Francis wonderfully appealing. He preached sermons to birds, totally groovy. A few minutes into this book, Rick happened to look up and see a bearded face peering in at him through the window. The face looked familiar, but disappeared too quickly for a positive ID. Rick went back to reading. 20 minutes later, the front door of Christ's crash pad swung open with a thud, and the face from the window, now attached to a large and agitated man, strode inside. It took Rick a second to recognize him under the long beard, but it was Jonas, lead singer for Azazel. I thought it was you, Rick. Glad to see you. You don't know how glad. Jonas eased himself onto a beanbag. Rick felt slightly embarrassed to be seen at Christ's crash pad. Some part of his mind thought of religion as his safety school. The second choice he was forced to settle for when he figured out he couldn't become a rock star. His embarrassment evaporated on noticing what bad shape his friend was in. Jonas had bloodshot eyes, sallow skin, matted hair, and a general air of dishevelment. Rick tossed aside his book and gave Jonas his full attention. Yeah, glad to see you too, man. Talk to me. Tell me what's happening. Jonas looked around the room. I never took you for a Jesus freak. For some reason, I always thought you were Jewish. Me, I'm not so much into one thing or the other, or I didn't think I was. He leaned forward and spoke in a low voice. The satanic thing was supposed to be a gimmick. Rick leaned forward too. What satanic thing? With the band. You never knew? We didn't come right out with it because we thought it was cooler if people had to figure it out themselves. All our songs were about the devil. My name, Valak, is actually the name of a demon in hell who rides a two-headed dragon. The other guys too, Nekomata, Stolos, Raksasha, those are demons. Rick nodded. I did kind of think you guys all had weird last names. It started as a way to add a little pizzazz to our image, make us seem kind of dangerous and sexy. Then the other guys started getting really into it. First it was capes and candles, a little chanting. I thought it was just kid stuff, like sneaking into a graveyard at night to scare yourself. Then we all went to a party at this guy's house up in the Hollywood Hills. Oh, there was a black mass. The whole deal, pentagram drawn in blood, naked chick on the altar, invocations. I felt something that night, some unearthly power, and I wanted it to work for me. After that, we started hanging out with some serious Satanists, and I said and did things I shouldn't have, made deals. Now, he lowered his voice as if afraid of being overheard. I may have to pay the price. Rick leaned over to his friend and patted him on the shoulder. It's okay, man. It's okay. You're safe here. Jonas stared at Rick with haunted eyes. Maybe not. No, you are. You're safe here. I saw a real demon, said Jonas. An actual demon. Tears welled in his eyes. It was horrible, man. Horrible. Rick tried not to sound as skeptical as he felt. Are you sure? I was driving down Santa Monica around 3 this morning and I saw Astaroth, Grand Duke of Hell. He looked right at me and smiled like he knew me, like I was his. Jonas's nose was running, his body shaking. You're sure it was him? There's a lot of freaky shit out of him. He was right there on the sidewalk. Dark, scaly, too many eyes. Probably a movie prop. It was alive and moving. It wasn't the look of the damn thing that frightened me so much as the bad vibes. You could feel hate shooting off it like in waves. Or maybe something worse than hate, something not human. Older, dry, and dead, just malevolent. Rick put on a casual, not judgmental voice. So you were dosed, right? Jonas composed himself. Of course, that's why I could see him. Are you still tripping? Jonas shook his head violently. No, but he's still there. Rick calmly asked, where? Jonas pointed out to the street without looking. Right outside. Rick felt silly, but he looked. There was a car dealership, a donut shop, an apartment duplex. Reasoning with Jonas while he was whacked out was pointless, so he opted for a soothing fiction. Don't worry, you came to the right place. No demons can get in here. This place is sanctified. Jonas's eyebrows shot up hopefully. He wanted to believe, but wasn't sure. Sanctified? Yeah, sanctified by the Holy Spirit. Jonas still looked worried. Apparently the Holy Spirit wasn't quite doing the trick. We're in a storefront, went on Rick, but this place is an actual church. We hold services on Sundays. Jesus dwells here. Jesus? Jonas repeated. Rick flashed his 100-watt smile. The one and only. Jonas relaxed the muscles in his face, and his face slackened. Then we're safe. Rick, I need to crash, man. It's been too long. I need some sleep. Okay, that's it. Thank you so much.